You know that feeling when you're scrolling through social media and someone you went to high school with just posted photos of their new house? Keys in hand, big smile, standing in front of a two-car garage like they just won at life. And for a split second you freeze. Something tightens in your chest. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's shame. Maybe it's that quiet little voice asking, what am I doing wrong? Yeah, I know that feeling too. And here's the thing nobody really says out loud. Most of us can't afford a house right now. Not the way we were told we should. Not on the timeline we were promised. And honestly, that might be one of the best things that ever happened to you. I know. Sounds crazy. Just hear me out. Picture this. You're 28 or 32. Or 35. You've got a decent job. You're not rich, but you're doing okay. And your whole life you've been told that buying a house is the milestone, the thing that proves you're a real adult, the ultimate sign that you made it. But then you actually sit down and run the numbers, and nothing adds up. The median home price in the US is around $420,000 right now. In some cities, it's double that. Meanwhile, the average household income is about $75,000. Do the math. Even if you somehow scrape together a down payment, the mortgage alone eats half your paycheck. Then come property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, and suddenly, you're not building wealth. You're just bleeding money every month and praying nothing breaks. What really messes with your head is this. Everyone around you is pretending it's fine. They're buying houses they can barely afford, taking on debt they don't fully understand, posting about it like it's a massive win. And you're sitting there thinking, am I the only one who feels like this whole thing is broken? You're not. Here's what's actually going on. You can't afford a house not because you're bad with money, not because you didn't work hard enough, not because you bought too many coffees. It's because the game changed and nobody told you. 30 years ago, the average home cost about 3 times the average household income. Today, it's closer to 6 times. Wages barely moved. Housing prices exploded. Interest rates shot up in record time. But somehow, we're still being sold the same dream our parents had, like nothing's different. It is different, and pretending it's not is making people miserable. Homeownership was never supposed to be this hard, and it wasn't always treated like the ultimate measure of success. For most of history, people rented, they moved, they adapted. The obsession with owning property, especially in America, is actually pretty recent. It was marketed to us, sold as the foundation of the American dream, and it worked. But now that dream comes with a price tag most people can't reach without giving up everything else. Mental health, flexibility, career freedom, the ability to take risks or move when opportunity shows up. We're being asked to trade our 20s and 30s for a house we might not even want in 10 years. And if we don't do it, we're taught to feel like failures. Let me tell you about my friend Sarah. She's 33. Makes around $68,000 a year. She saved for years to put together a down payment. Finally bought a house, about 45 minutes from work. She was proud. Posted the pictures. Got all the likes. 6 months later, the water heater died. Then the roof started leaking. Then the furnace quit in the middle of January. $15,000 in repairs. In less than a year. Money she didn't have. Money she put on credit cards because what choice did she have? Now she's stuck. She can't sell without losing money. She can't afford to fix everything, and she spends 2 hours a day commuting. Burning gas, burning time, burning out. She told me once, I thought owning a house would make me feel safe. Instead, I feel trapped. That part never makes it onto Instagram. Now, I'm not saying owning a home is bad. For some people in the right situation, it makes sense. But we've been taught it's the only path, the right path. And that's just not true anymore. Because here's what renting gives you that nobody talks about. Freedom. You can move for a better job. You can change cities. You can leave a bad situation without losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. When something breaks, you call the landlord. You don't drain your emergency fund. You're not locked into a 30-year commitment while your life is still figuring itself out. And let's be honest, most of us have no idea where we'll be in 5 years. So the idea that you must lock yourself into massive debt in your late 20s or early 30s, when you really think about it, it's kind of insane. But we do it anyway, because we think we're supposed to. Here's where psychology comes in. There's something called loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing twice as strongly as the pleasure of gaining. And we've been taught that renting equals losing, throwing money away, not building equity, making your landlord rich. But that's not the whole story. When you own, a huge chunk of your payment goes to interest, especially in the first 10 years. You're mostly paying the bank. Add taxes, insurance, repairs, HOA fees, and the opportunity cost of that down payment. Owning isn't always the financial win we think it is. There are phantom costs nobody talks about. The stress, the weekends fixing things, the inability to move when life changes. Those things cost time, energy, peace of mind. And when you're still building your life, flexibility can be worth more than equity. I've seen it firsthand. My cousin bought a condo in 2019. Thought he got a great deal. Now the HOA fees doubled. There's a special assessment. He's paying $600 a month just in fees. On top of the mortgage. He wants out, but selling now means losing money. Meanwhile, His friend who kept renting got a job offer in another state, better pay, better life, gave 60 days notice and left. No lawyers, no realtor fees, no stress. So who's really winning? And I know the big question. What about building wealth? Generational wealth. Yes, real estate can build wealth, but it's not the only way. And in today's market, it might not even be the best way for everyone. If 40% of your income goes to housing, you're not investing, you're not saving, you're one emergency away from trouble. Compare that to someone who rents affordably and invests the difference. Over time, that person can come out ahead. Not because they avoided houses, but because they stayed flexible and kept their costs under control. We just don't talk about that. So here's the shift I want you to make. Stop treating homeownership like the finish line. Start treating it like one option. The real goal isn't buying a house by 30. It's building a life that actually fits you. Maybe that includes a house someday. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's later. Maybe it's never. That's your call. But just because the system is trying to guilt you into one path doesn't mean you have to take it. So practically speaking, stop comparing yourself to homeowners on social media. You don't know what they're sacrificing. If you're renting, use the flexibility. Build an emergency fund. Invest. Create options. No lawyers, no realtor fees, no stress. So who's really winning? And I know the big question. What about building wealth? Generational wealth. Yes, real estate can build wealth, but it's not the only way. And in today's market, it might not even be the best way for everyone. If 40% of your income goes to housing, you're not investing, you're not saving, you're one emergency away from trouble. Compare that to someone who rents affordably and invests the difference. Over time, that person can come out ahead. Not because they avoided houses, but because they stayed flexible and kept their costs under control. We just don't talk about that. So here's the shift I want you to make. Stop treating homeownership like the finish line. Start treating it like one option. The real goal isn't buying a house by 30. It's building a life that actually fits you. Maybe that includes a house someday. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's later. Maybe it's never. That's your call. But just because the system is trying to guilt you into one path doesn't mean you have to take it. So practically speaking, stop comparing yourself to homeowners on social media. You don't know what they're sacrificing. If you're renting, use the flexibility. Build an emergency fund. Invest. Create options. And if you do want to buy someday, do it on your terms. Not because of an age, not because of pressure, and definitely not to keep up with people who might be barely holding it together. Most importantly, give yourself permission to be okay where you are. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're navigating an economy your parents never had to deal with. Without a guidebook, that's hard. And it's okay to admit that. Wanting a house isn't wrong. It's emotional. It's about safety, stability, feeling like you've made it. I get that. But real security doesn't come from property. It comes from choice. And sometimes, the smartest move is saying no to what everyone else is rushing into. So the next time you see someone holding house keys on Instagram, you don't have to feel bad. You can be happy for them and still know your path is valid. You're not behind. You're just on a different timeline. And honestly, that might be the smartest decision you didn't even realize you were making.